Welcome to this edition of the Weightlifting World podcast. Today we're joined by a true icon and legend in both British and international weightlifting. In an incredible career, he took a total of 9 gold and 3 silver medals at Commonwealth Games for Wales, winning the overall gold in 82, 86, 90, 94 and 2002. He took 3 bronze medals at the 1987 European Champs and placed 4th twice in Olympic Games in 84 and 88. To many, he is the greatest British weightlifter of the modern era. It's our honour to welcome David Morgan. Hi David, thanks for joining us today.
Hello there, yeah, you're welcome.
So, how's your day going?
How's my day going? What have I done? You won't believe what I've done today.
Well, tell us.
I've learned how to make bread.
Brilliant.
My wife took me on a bread making course this morning.
Brilliant.
We normally train in the morning, so I've just done a workout actually, and believe it or not, it was a weightlifting
Excellent.
workout.
So, maybe, what kind of thing are you still doing these days in terms of your own training?
Well, I've got a personal training company, so I do a lot of personal training. I do about sort of 35 to 40 hours a week, and I do sort of rowing to sort of keep my aerobic sort of fitness up because I'm 50 this year, so I'm trying to kind of keep a good general level of fitness because I'm very interested in fitness as well as kind of sport at a very high level.
Yeah.
And I've been doing some sort of bodybuilding, CrossFit training, and today I did some weightlifting because I'm considering doing the European Masters, which are being held in Bangan.
Okay.
Middle of next year. My brother's sort of trying to persuade me, so I've sort of donating 1 day a week at the moment to sort of doing a few snatches and cleans. So it's quite interesting.
Yes, because actually I know Tony relatively well, and Tony at one point was thinking about trying out for the Commonwealth, wasn't he? I'm not sure if he's going to do the Commonwealth, but I think because he's got a lot of family commitments, etc. But I think he's been training regularly now for the last sort of 6 months. Yeah. He's definitely thinking about doing the Europeans in Wales. Sort of, I think it's June next year. Yeah. And I'm thinking about it. Okay, excellent. Yeah. So what we'll do initially, we'll come back to that obviously, because that's kind of that'll bring the whole thing full circle when we start talking about some of your achievements at masters level. But just initially, just tell us a bit about your early life, your growing up. Just anything that you think is relevant and that the listeners might be interested to know about. Any other sports you played, and when you first got introduced to weightlifting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was always interested in sort of people that could do amazing things. So when I was young, I suppose we're going back to when I was sort of 8 or 9. I was very sort of interested in something that a lot of people are interested in now. Marvel comics. Yeah. I was interested in Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk and all these kind of things. And at the time, it was comics because they didn't have the technology to kind of make those films. Then they didn't have all the sort of CGI and everything else. So I was very interested in that. And I used to buy a Marvel comic from a little newsagent's that I used to go past on my way to school. And I used to read it, and I used to be fascinated with people that could kind of, not just strength, people that had incredible sort of brain power, or people that were good at anything really. Yeah. But strength sort of, I don't know, fascinated me. And initially I didn't realise that you could actually train and make yourself stronger. I was just fascinated with the kind of superhero kind of side of things. Yeah. And one day I was reading one of these comics, and there was an advert for the Charles Atlas Dynamic Tension Bodybuilding course. Yeah. And in the advert, it was a very sort of politically incorrect advert. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah, the kick in the sand in the face, and yeah.
Yeah, it's a cartoon where the guy's sort of skinny and gets beaten up and doesn't get any girlfriends, and then he does the course, goes back and sort of beats up the bully. So that, which is kind of ironic because he sort of becomes the becomes the bully, and then he gets all the girls, and that kind of appealed to me. So my uncle actually bought the course for me, and I did that. And it was basically press ups, and it's all bodyweight stuff really. Yeah. But I did have some success with that. I did put some muscle on, even though I was really young. I did put some muscle on, and I don't know. I was just very interested in it, and then I can't remember what came first. I think the Superstars came first, and they used to have I don't know if you remember, but they had the weightlifting in the Superstars.
Yes.
So I sort of became interested in that, and then I went. I think it was 1970. I don't know if it was 1975 or 1977. I think it was 75. I went to see Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
And realised that weights was probably the way to go in terms of muscle bulk and strength.
Yeah,
because
sure.
Obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger compared to Charles Atlas, there was no sort of comparison.
No.
So I initially did it to sort of just get generally bigger and stronger, I suppose, because I was quite small at school. I mean, I'm only 5'8" now, but I mean, which is kind of passable. But at school, I was really, really, really small. I was always the smallest kind of kid in my class, so I used to get pushed around a bit. So I figured that if I could get a bit bigger, maybe things would be different. So initially, it was just a question of getting stronger, and I was more interested in muscle gain. And then as time sort of went on, I became more interested in strength than muscle.
Yeah.
And in 1978, I was watching the weightlifting on the Commonwealth Games, and I don't know, I just was fascinated by it. So I sort of turned my energies towards that. And unfortunately, in Cambridge, there was no real coaches, so I was kind of self-taught. I kind of watched the techniques on TV, and luckily I didn't pick up too many bad habits.
Yeah.
So I trained for
it's quite interesting
a year just focusing on weightlifting.
The pattern that you talk about there of someone coming into weightlifting having been initially interested in, like you said, like comic books. I know when I was a kid, it was a similar kind of thing, and He-Man as well. But then to become interested in bodybuilding, and then to sort of parlay that into weightlifting, I think it's a relatively common path, I think. And I guess you were born in 1964.
Yeah, I was 1964. Yeah,
1964. Yeah. So that would have been just before the bodybuilding boom, really, I guess, in the 70s.
Yeah, well, I think the bodybuilding boom was I mean, Arnold was sort of everything that was good about bodybuilding and everything that was bad at the same time.
Yeah.
Because, he showed that doing, heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, heavy benches, eating lots of protein, that was his kind of thing, and that's what still works today. And a lot of people, because of him and because of his personality in his films, he made sort of bodybuilding cool, I suppose, for want of a better word.
And interestingly, of course, he competed a little in weightlifting.
He did, yeah. He did. I think he snatched 105 and clean and jerked 140.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
As a 90-kilo lifter. So he wasn't a particularly good weightlifter, but I think it was. I think when he first started, it was. I think you had to do that as a base to your training.
Yeah. Yes.
Which I think is quite a good start. It's quite a good way to start. I think it's quite a good base to have. So the interesting thing about Arnold was that I always say to people, he was everything that was good about training, but he kind of created not through himself, but because he made weights kind of cool and training cool.
Yeah,
there are all these other spin-offs that came from like aerobics and all the kind of stuff that in my mind is what's wrong with fitness training.
Yeah.
All the kind of fads, it was cool to have the muscle, but a lot of people didn't actually like doing the hard work. And it's interesting that you've got all these different types of training. And I basically, all my clients, I just stick to the old school stuff, and it works great.
Yeah, but he kind of commercialised him and the Weider brothers. They kind of commercialised strength training, didn't they? And they,
exactly.
Before that period, I mean, if you pick up any books on strength training, they don't talk so much about isolation exercises for biceps or for like a rear delt fly or anything like that. It's much more a form of strength training that is almost kind of more in tune with the way that you might train for a weightlifting or for powerlifting.
Well, that's right. I mean, if you look at I don't know if you've ever read Randy Strozzen's Super Squats.
Yes.
But it basically talks about the exercises that give you the biggest bang for your buck, really, like squats and all the exercises that people that go to mainstream gyms do not do.
Yeah, Absolutely.
I've got loads of people that come to me that have been to normal gyms and they say, oh yeah, went to the gym 5-6 days a week and we didn't improve.
Yeah.
I looked at what they were doing and they said, yeah, well you don't do deadlifts, you don't do benches, you don't do squats.
Yeah.
You don't do military press. You're doing side raises with 2.5 kilo dumbbells and you're kind of doing machine stuff and you're actually avoiding doing anything that's gonna benefit you.
Sure.
These days, when we look at your body on your personal training website, I think your body looks more like an Arnold Schwarzenegger than a classic weightlifter.
Yeah, it does, because I've obviously done a more rounded kind of training routine, with the aerobic stuff, and my diet's quite tight now because I'm getting older.
It certainly has worked. Very impressive.
It's worked. Oh, it's definitely, yeah. No, that's the irony is that there are a lot of things that I do now that I'm much better at than I was when I was weightlifting. Obviously, I couldn't snatch 170 or clean and jerk 207.5 now. That's just never going to happen. But
yeah,
things that are more strength related, like deadlifts, for example, or bench press, and things that are kind of aerobic related, like sort of 2,000 meter rows. I'm far better on those things than I ever was.
Sure, as it should be, I guess. You if you'd have been good at that back then, it would have probably indicated that your specificity wasn't quite right.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. When I was, give an example. When I was weightlifting, I couldn't bench press 100 kilos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could jerk 220 kilos off stands.
Exactly.
Now I could bench press 190 kilos.
Yeah.
But I probably wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to. I don't know what I could jerk, but it certainly wouldn't be 220 kilos.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So as a young man, where were you training? What kind of facilities were available to you when you first embarked upon this kind of self-learning phase?
Well, going right back, sort of 75, 76, my parents bought me a body sculpture barbell set. It was about a 50 kilo barbell set. So I used to just train in the bedroom.
Okay.
And then I went along to a local gym in Cambridge. And I met a guy called Barry Gray, who was actually a powerlifter. I think I was 12 at the time, and he said, you can't do bodybuilding. If you want to come here, you can lift weights, but you've got to do weightlifting.
Yeah. So
that's how I kind of got into the weightlifting. But there was nobody there that could really teach weightlifting.
Okay.
So a lot of it was from, a lot of it was from TV or books, or luckily I didn't pick up any bad habits. But I was kind of doing that for a while, waiting until I got old enough to do the bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But then, like I say, in 1978, when I saw the weightlifting on TV, and I realised you go to the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics, I don't know, it just sort of grabbed my interest, really.
Yeah. So when was
and then I got kind of serious.
When was your first introduction to a bit of proper coaching?
In 1979, so I would have been 13. I competed in the British Schoolboy Championships.
Okay.
In Yorkshire. I was 44 kilos, I think I weighed, and I did 70 snatch and a 90 jerk.
Well, pretty good numbers.
Pretty
good numbers for a 44 kilo 13-year-old.
Yeah, well, they were.
Yeah.
And I met a guy there called Den Welsh, who runs a club he's dead now, but he ran a club in Bristol called the Empire Sports Club.
Sure.
And he came to see me after competition and said, asked me about my training and, how many days a week you're training and who's your coach. And I just said, well, I'm coaching myself and I do 3 days a week. And he started, he invited me down for the summer holidays, actually.
Yeah.
So I went down to Bristol and stayed in the Empire Sports Club, which is an old converted
church.
Yes,
I know it well.
And he gave me some really good coaching, introduced me obviously to a lot of other, very, very good lifters. I spent 6 weeks there, and then from then on, he gave me all my training routines, and sort of introduced me to twice a day training.
Yeah.
Which was quite difficult when you're at school.
Yeah.
I had to get up at 5, go to the gym, do my workout, go to school, and just come home, do my workout, then come back and do my homework. So
it's incredible that you were doing that kind of frequency and volume at that age.
Yeah, I was quite motivated. I was always quite motivated. I was very enthusiastic and very I am now about things, but I was very, very single-minded. I wanted to, I had specific goals, and one of them was that I wanted to go to the Olympics, I wanted to be a world champion, and I wanted to break a world record. And some of those came quite quickly, and others took a bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And literally only 4 years after that, you were the youngest ever Commonwealth Games champion in 1982 in Brisbane. You lifted in the 67.5 kilo class, lifted 132.5 in the snatch, 162.5 in the clean and jerk. That must have been an incredible experience and achievement for a 17-year-old. Just tell us a bit about that.
It was quite funny because I went over to, it was in Brisbane, and I went over, I think before that championship, I was I was sort of pretty unknown really. So I always remember, one of the things two things I remember from that championship. And one of them was that my coach, Den, he was a very, I don't know if you ever met, did you ever meet Den Welsh?
No, I never have done, no.
No. He was a very positive guy. That was one of his strengths. He obviously knew a lot about training and everything, but he was more of a psychological guy. So he was very good at building people up and making them believe in themselves. And he just, I don't know, he just sort of put it in my head that I was better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And that the Commonwealth Games wasn't really going to be an issue. He was like, well, you're going to beat everybody there, and he did it as if he believed it, and I sort of believed it as well. And when I went out, I didn't really feel as if I had any. I didn't really have any pressure on me because I was sort of 17 when I went out.
Yeah.
And hadn't really done anything, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'd lifted 6 months before when the selection process was going on, and a guy called, you probably don't know Alan Winterbourne, but a guy called Alan Winterbourne was selected for the English team, and I didn't get selected.
Okay.
So Den said, well, you're going to be, in 6 months' time, you're going to be better than everybody else. So we have to make sure that you're there.
Yeah.
Because the guy who's been selected for England, he's 34 years old, and he's not even going to place. So I ended up going for Wales.
Okay.
My dad was Welsh.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Wales sort of took me on, and when the time came, obviously I went out, and one of the things I remember, I was in the lineup, and I just remember that they were announcing people's names and then saying what they'd done.
Yeah.
So they announced Bill Stelios, who was the reigning champion. They said Bill Stelios, reigning Commonwealth champion. Eric Rogers, Commonwealth Games clean and jerk record holder, and they just kind of went through all these different names. Then they got to me and they went David Morgan, Wales, and that was it. And then they kind of moved on. And that was the first thing I remember. And then after the snatches, I think I was 7.5 and body weight ahead of Stelios. And I remember going to the toilet in between the snatch and the clean and jerk, and I was kind of sitting on the toilet, and I could hear these people going, "Who's this Morgan bloke? We've never heard of him."
Wow.
And so it was kind of, in a way, there was kind of no pressure on me.
Yeah.
In a way, even though I suppose you could have argued that there was, because Den was kind of putting the pressure on.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like that.
Do you feel that he truly believed that you were going to go there and win it? Or
Yes.
do you think that was just you think he really truly believed it?
I think he truly believed it.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of the numbers that you did there, how did they compare to the kind of things you'd been doing in training, the kind of numbers you'd done in training or competitions in that year?
I think I'd done 135, 160.
Okay, so it's around the same kind of numbers.
Basically, I did the same. Yeah. 295. Yeah.
And obviously, you'd said from that 6 month period from when you hadn't got the selection for England until that Commonwealth Games. What did you specifically do differently in your training to ensure that you came into the Commonwealth Games in the best possible form and obviously championship winning form?
Yeah, I didn't do anything different. I listed in the British under-18s 6 months before.
Yeah.
And I remember I weighed in at 64 kilos, so I was very light in the 67.5 kilo class, because I weighed in at 64, but I hadn't reduced my body weight. So normally you'd be weighing about 70 and you'd be coming down to 67.5.
Yeah.
So I was 64. So I had about 6 kilos to gain, nearly a stone in weight to gain. So basically all that really happened, I mean when I was 64 kilos in the under 18s, I did 120 and 153.
Yeah.
To break the junior Commonwealth record.
So you just ate. You just ate basically.
Well, yeah. All that happened was that I just ate, and it was just a natural progression over the 6 months. I ate. I put on sort of, 5 or 6 kilos, and with the 5 or 6 kilos and my age, I just improved to where you would go.
Yes.
Excuse me, where you would have expected me to have improved. So it was all a timing thing, really. I think Den realised that because I was so young, in six months when you're 17.
Yes,
it can make a huge difference.
Development's rapid, isn't it?
I think you knew that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was rapid. Yeah.
So I mean, so you took that medal, and how did you feel once you realised you'd won that Commonwealth Games gold?
That was quite funny, really, because I don't know if you ever experienced this, but when you build up to something, you have this kind of feeling of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And then when you do it, when you kind of win and you do your best, you have an elation, if you like.
Yeah.
And then actually the next day, for me anyway, and I know there are other people that are like this, you almost feel slightly depressed until you're actually training for the next.
Yeah.
For the next thing.
Yeah.
There were quite a few funny things. I mean, after I won that games, I was always trying to get sponsorship, and I was never really that successful at getting sponsorship. That's sort of another story. But I'll tell you one very quick story. One of the things I used, I mean, they weren't big on protein powders back then. I mean, now you've got all kinds of different protein powders.
Yes.
You can mix them up, and they taste like milkshakes, and they're all they're all high tech. And but what I used to use was carnation build-up.
Yes.
So I used to drink 2 or 3 of those a day, and along with my normal meals. That was part of my sort of bulking process, if you like.
Yeah.
And after I won the Commonwealth Games, I wrote to Carnation Build Up and said, I use your product. I just won a gold medal in the Commonwealth Games. Would you sponsor me? And they wrote me a letter back, and they said, we don't sponsor people, but here's 3.25 pence off your next purchase.
Brilliant.
Tokens. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So that was my sponsorship.
I hope you framed them.
I had 3.25p off your next purchase tokens from Carnation Build Up.
Doesn't that show the different world we live in today? It's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely incredible.
I've never heard of Carnation.
I'm not sure that it's better though.
Different, isn't it? It's different. Honest. It's different. I think maybe
different, but I'm not sure that it's better, and I'm not sure that it produces better athletes because. I wasn't doing it. I was never doing it for the money. I was always doing it because it was something I wanted to do.
Yeah. You think maybe you lose the hunger a little bit, perhaps, when you're not competing?
You get too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the same in everything in life. I think if people, I know a lot of people that send their kids to private school and give them everything, and and the kids are bored. By the time they're 20, they've done everything.
Yeah.
Nothing's new. Everything's boring. I don't know. It's a fine balance, isn't it?
Well, I think you see it in professional football, don't you? I mean, where you have, if you go back 40 years in professional football, apprentices were still cleaning the boots, and they wouldn't have been making really good money until they were at the top of the game. Whereas nowadays, apprentices are on a good salary already, and are multi-millionaires by the time they're 18, 19, 20.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how good that is for people because it's I don't know. I think you need the struggle and you need the fight. I think.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I don't know how closely you follow the contemporary scene in weightlifting in Britain, but I mean it's interesting that with UK Sport recently withdrawing the funding. For British weightlifting, it'll be interesting to see how the attitudes and the approaches of your Zoe Smiths and these kind of people will change, or if they change at all, when they're not getting their 10 grand a year or whatever.
Well, we didn't get any funding. I mean, my parents weren't wealthy. My dad worked for the railway, and my mum had 3 cleaning jobs when I was doing my weightlifting. And she did, purely to help me.
Yeah.
And when I left school, they said, you can live at home, you can live in and you can keep your room for free, and you can train twice a day, and sort of follow your dream, and we'll support you sort of as best we can, really.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I know Zoe's a good friend of mine, and but I think I've always said that it's fascinating when you think of a 15, 16-year-old athlete as she was at the last Commonwealth Games, receiving funding, receiving state funding. When I think back to being 15, 16, you kind of wonder where you'd spend your funding. Your parents kind of take you to sport and pick you up, and it seems interesting to see that you're potentially funding 15 and 16-year-olds nowadays.
Yeah,
it's kind of fascinating.
It's a very I think you've got to give people what they need.
Yeah.
But if you give people too much, or I think it can work against you.
Yeah. So you obviously after to 82, you went on to win gold in 86, 90, 94. And 2002. Just I'm not going to make you go through every single one of those in detail, but just kind of talk me through any particular high points, any stories that came out of those games. How did your perception of the Commonwealth Games change across that time? Did it become any less special? Just kind of talk me through any of that stuff.
I'll give you a little bit on each one. Well, 86. I lifted in the 82.5 kilo class. I only actually weighed 78 kilos. Yeah. And I competed against Robert Cavas, who had won an Olympic silver 2 years prior. I think he did 325 and I did 350, and I think I just missed a 200.5 clean and jerk.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an easy win, really, that one.
Yeah.
I didn't have to reduce any body weight, and was sort of street ahead of everybody, so I was kind of around my peak then. 1990, I didn't actually do very much training for that because I'd spent 2 years at college.
Okay.
So I did a very kind of small amount of training, but sort of pulled that one out. 94 was a difficult one for me and Tony, because our dad died 4 weeks before the championship.
Oh, tragic.
Which was I kind of got through it. Tony struggled a bit more than I did, but but we sort of got through it with Den's help and. So that was good. 98 is probably more interesting.
Yes.
Where I had a complete disaster.
Was that in any way expected or a complete shock?
Well, it's interesting because I think in life really I lost that because I got too cocky, and I didn't do my homework. I stopped doing the stuff that I normally did.
Okay.
I was quite strong in the gym.
Yeah.
I'd snatched 155 before that.
Yeah.
And I'd cleaned 180, but I hadn't done any jerks at all because I had a shoulder problem, and I should have really sorted that one out.
Okay.
And I didn't, and I learned a lot of lessons from that. And actually, after that championship, I didn't want to know about weightlifting for a while.
Yeah.
It kind of I don't know. I was annoyed with myself because I sort of mucked up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it taught me a very valuable lesson. It doesn't matter how good you are or how good you think you are. If you stop doing the things that got you there, or if you don't look at the detail, and in this instance, the detail was getting my shoulder right and doing the training.
Yeah.
I was just kind of expecting that to be all right on the day.
Yeah.
And of course, things aren't all right. You have to do the work for things to be all right. I don't even know how I sort of deluded myself on that one. So I was quite depressed after that because that was one of my goals was to do something no one else has ever done.
Yeah.
Was win 5 Commonwealth Games, because no one's won 5 Commonwealth Games in any sport, not just weightlifting. No one's won 5 in any sport.
Sure.
And at the time, I thought that that was it. You know, I thought, well, I'm too old to win 2002.
Yeah.
So I kind of left weightlifting for a while. But then in 2000, somebody persuaded me. Peter May, I don't know if you know Peter May, but
Yeah, I know of him. I don't know him personally, but
he's a character. Let's put it that way. He's a sort of a wild card and a he looks like a Chippendale. He's a sort of Londoner, an East Ender. He was a very good athlete. I don't know, and he sort of tricked me into sort of getting back into it in some ways.
Yeah.
Invited me to the Masters, which I'd never really thought about. In 1999, I think he invited me.
Yeah.
And by 2000, I was competing in the Masters.
Okay.
And I think I did 300 as a 77 in the Masters in Disneyland in 2000.
Oh well.
And on the back of that total, so I got a letter from Mervyn John, the Welsh,
Yes.
one of the Welsh coaches, saying, and with a ranking list showing me where I was ranked in the Commonwealth, and saying, why don't you do the Commonwealth in 2002? Your lifts are pretty good. You know, you've got a chance to get a medal.
Yeah.
So then I thought, maybe I have, and I didn't think I could win it, but I thought I could maybe get a gold in the snatch. And ironically, I didn't get a gold in. I didn't get a gold in the snatch. I got a gold in the jerk and the total, the two things that I didn't think I would.
Yeah.
And sort of managed to, achieve the uniqueness. And I don't think anyone's won 5 games in any sport. It still stands, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I guess obviously the immediate comparison would be Redgrave, wouldn't it, in the Olympics? With five golds. And in a sense, for a British weightlifter, I think the Commonwealth is almost the Olympics.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference between Redgrave though and me, people have mentioned it before, but if Redgrave had been doing it in a skull on his own, he'd have probably maybe won one Olympics, and then he'd have probably maybe placed in the others. The thing that he was very good at was getting in the right team, wasn't he?
The headline for this interview is going to be Dave Morgan says Redgrave was carried to 4 Olympic golds.
Yeah. Well, one thing that if you don't know, you know my brother. Yeah, you don't know me, do you? One thing is that probably hasn't helped me over the years is that I'm always very honest with my my comments. I mean, somebody asked me about Pistorius the other day.
Yeah.
What did you think of him as an athlete? And I said, yeah, he's great, but if he'd been born with legs, he wouldn't have got in the 100-meter final.
No, you're probably right.
So I mean, it's not. There's no malice against anything.
He said that himself.
I just believe in telling the absolute truth, and sometimes people don't like the absolute truth.
No, he admits that.
So
himself.
it hasn't served me well always, but that's me. So I'll continue to.
Sure. It makes for a better interview as well. It makes for a good interview. People want to listen to you. That's the important thing, I think.
And these days you're in much better shape than Steve Redgrave is.
True.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a year older than me, and he looks about 20 years older.
He does. He does. Yeah. So just what I was kind of getting at earlier was, I mean, did you manage to maintain your, from what you're saying, it looks as if maybe your passion for Commonwealth Games success perhaps, in a sense, diminished a little bit over time. You were saying by 98 maybe you were taking it a bit for granted, and after that, you almost had to be coaxed back into 2002. I mean, once you said you wanted to win 5, but I mean, obviously after you've won 1 and then 2 and then 3, is it difficult to get motivated for Commonwealth Games medals?
Not really. I mean, once I've sort of decided I'm going to do it, that's it.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. In the 2002, I have to say, in terms of degree of difficulty, 2002 Commonwealth Games was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life because I was 37 and obviously wasn't, you can't be as good as you are when you're 24.
Yeah.
But you've got all kinds of other problems at that age because I was trying to train twice a day.
Yeah.
I was training when I was 24, and I was getting all kinds of, it wasn't just the training. The training, it isn't easy, but I can take the pain of training.
Yeah.
I was getting all kinds of injuries. It was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I actually considered giving up on more than one occasion in that build-up. At one point, my knees were so sore that I just thought, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I was actually going to give up. And luckily, a client of mine was the top guy in Cambridge on the MRI scan.
Oh, really?
And I was saying, my knees are just terrible, I just can't go on. He goes, look, come and get a scan. Let's just find out what the problem is. I said, yeah, but it's going to be bad. And he said, well, pain isn't always an indication of how severe the injury is.
Yeah.
Sometimes pain lies to you. So I kind of went along with it, and he did an MRI scan on the knees, and actually it turned out that the problem was very minor.
Yeah.
It was causing me a lot of pain, but it was very minor, and he sorted it out there and then, believe it or not. It was inflamed bursas under the patella.
Yes.
Tendon.
Quite a common thing.
Yeah, he just stuck a needle in.
Yeah.
Drained off the fluid, and there's a little bit of blood and a bit of blood and fluid. Drained it off.
Yeah.
Completely. Left the needle in. Put some cortisone in each one, and within 4 days I was pain free. It was unbelievable.
Crikey.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a few little points, a few points where I wanted to kind of give up there, but I'm glad I didn't. And I'm glad it kind of went the way it did, because it allowed me to be the sort of only person to win 5 games.
Sure.
And even if somebody wins 6, it doesn't matter, because I'll still be the first guy that won 5, and it will still be a weightlifter that was the first one to win 5.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So moving on from that, let's just talk a bit about your Olympic escapades. You placed 4th at the 1984 Games. You placed 4th again in '88, and obviously you went to the '92 Games. Just a few observations and questions relating to those. Obviously, the '84 Games was the one that was boycotted by the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I should have been 10th there.
Yeah. I was just looking at some of the statistics, and just looking at the 94 of the world's top 100 lifters weren't at that particular game. 29 of the 30 medalists from the world champs weren't there, and all defending world champs weren't there. So just give me your obviously you said that you should have come 10th. Just give me your kind of feelings about, as someone who experienced that kind of situation whereby, in a sense, you're competing in the biggest competition in the world, but the best guys weren't there. How did that feel to you? What was your gut feeling towards that?
Well, 1984 is a funny year. It's a very funny year, because there's something that you probably don't know about. In 1984, I did 2 things. I did the Junior World Championships.
Yeah.
And I did the Olympic Games.
Yeah, that was the Junior World Championships. Is that the first time in 27 years a British weightlifter had won gold at a World Champs, wasn't it? The juniors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a backstory. There's a kind of a backstory to that, because in '84, I was the first person to win a gold. I won a gold on the snatch with 150 as a 75 kilo lifter. I cleaned at 180 on that day, and I was actually in the lead. And now this was a time when they didn't have juries in weightlifting. They just had referees. So I was listening again. The top guy was like a Bulgarian guy and an East German guy. And there were 2 East German referees and 1 Russian referee. So I did my 180. So I was in the lead on the total with 330. So this was one of my goals, world champion. I thought, well, I'm going to be world champion now. I've kind of done it. Yeah. German lifter came out on, I think he needed 185 because I was lighter than I only weighed 73 kilos. Cleaned the weight, jerked it, and dropped it still in the split. Okay. But didn't recover. 2 reds, 1 white. 2 whites from the East German referees, 1 red. That's incredible. No jury. Unbelievable. So he was made world champion. Wow. Where I was robbed of the world championships. Where was that held? Lignano Sabradori. Okay. Yeah, and that really annoys me to this day, because I was world champion that day. Yeah. And the guy dropped the weight in the split. Yeah, and they gave me a good lift. And of course, that era there wouldn't have been any video, I guess, or if there was video, it wouldn't have been, for everyone to see. Well, so many people came up to me afterwards and said, you were clearly robbed. I mean, everybody said it. I mean, but they couldn't do anything at the time because of the ruling. Wow. So that was a disappointment, because actually, I knew I was world champion that year. And then the Olympics. Well, the Olympics. I was still a junior. I wasn't ready to really compete against the best seniors in the world. And fourth place was better than I expected. If I'd snatched 150 on that day, I'd have got a bronze medal. But I know in my own mind that it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been real. But having said that, you have to be there. You have to be in it to win it, don't you? And,
sure.
And the political stuff that was going around was not really wasn't anything to do with me.
Because you were 2.5K short of the bronze medal.
That's right.
But interestingly, was won by Dragomir Cheroslan of Romania, I believe.
No, it wasn't won by him. It was won by Karl-Heinz Rodzinski of Germany.
Oh, okay.
Ironically, he won it with 340.
He won the gold, didn't he? But Cheroslan took the bronze. I think that was
bronze.
Yeah, he took the bronze
like
that you were
2.5 kilos.
You were just short of, yeah. Because it's ironic, really, that I guess he was an Eastern European, but wasn't part of the boycott.
No, Romania were the only team that didn't. The only communist country that didn't boycott. Yeah.
Yes, and he would go on to obviously coach the American national squad.
He did
many years later. Yeah,
he did. Yeah, and he's in America now, and I think he's quite wealthy as well.
Really,
he's a very intelligent guy. He spoke about 10 different languages.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So you obviously had that period in '84. You then won the '86 Commonwealths. Yeah, and you get to Seoul in 1988. This time around,
I was unlucky. Yeah. Well, the irony of Seoul was, I think in Los Angeles I came 4th and should have come 10th.
Yeah.
And in Seoul I came 4th and should have actually won it.
Really? Yes.
Yeah, because what happened? I mean, I hate making excuses. I'm not making excuses because obviously things are, in sport, things happen. People get ill, people get injured. There's a million and one different things that can happen. But I was particularly disappointed with Seoul because in training I was doing 170 snatch, I was doing 207.5 jerk.
Yeah.
And I was, I wasn't heavy. I was only 81 kilos or something. So I was quite light.
Yeah.
And those lifts would have won it. But we went training in Bulgaria before that championship. We did I think we did 3 weeks in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
I picked up a bug and I ended up in hospital for a week with dysentery.
Okay. Yeah.
That was 3 weeks before the Olympics. Then I came out of hospital and I had 2 weeks training.
Yeah.
And I still did 165 and 200. But I think if I'd have had the right training, I'd have done 172 and probably 210 and won that one.
Yeah.
But so I was really disappointed with that. But you can't. That's sport, isn't it? You do everything you can, and then something like that can
Sure.
take it away from you at the last minute. So.
But then that would have been an incredible achievement, wouldn't it, for a British weightlifter in a non-boycotted Olympics to have taken a gold? I mean, that would have been something that would have
that was my
all-time achievement.
That was my one. I think that was my one chance there, and unfortunately, luck was not on my side.
But looking at it with hindsight, given the current kind of state that British weightlifting is in, for a British person to have placed 4th in the 1988 Olympics, it still looked at as an incredible achievement, though, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how weightlifting looks at it because I don't know. I mean, there's a couple of things I don't know if you know, but I mean, all the records that I broke have been kind of taken away. So the middleweight records that I did, 75 kilos, I did 155 and 192.
Yeah.
And there's an 82.5 kilo lift, I did 166 and 205.
Yeah.
And those records have been wiped out, even though the weight classes have been increased.
Yeah.
So my sort of legacy, is kind of gone now. My name's not in the record books, which is.
No, I think that's something that is, it's always the thing with weightlifting, isn't it? I it's like javelin throwing when they changed the javelin or whatever.
But the point of weightlifting is they didn't really change. All they did was they made the weight class heavier.
Yes.
But if you make the weight class heavier, you should leave the records with the person who was lighter.
Yes.
So if I'm doing 155, 192 at 75 kilos, and they make the weight class 77. The 77 kilo guy should have to beat those records before he has the records. If you know what I mean.
In theory, it should be
slightly different to increase the weight of the javelin. If you increase the weight of the javelin, obviously they've got to throw a heavier javelin further, so it isn't the same. But in weight, I could never understand why they decided they were going to wipe my records out, and after all those kind of years of work, and then somebody doing sort of 170 clean and jerk was going to be the British record holder. It just seemed sort of
frustrating,
odd, and slightly annoying.
And do you know if that's the same in other countries, or was that purely a British thing? Because my experience is it's the same in most countries.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah,
but there's an argument. I often thought of actually taking them to court at one point and just kind of saying, "Can you re-establish my records, please?"
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Because Alan Ogilvy, who was the 56 kilo record holder, they've still maintained his records.
Really?
That's very strange.
Wipe his records out, and then because the weight class never changed,
yes.
They never wiped those records out.
Yeah.
But you could sort of argue that if the weight class actually got heavier, you'd have less of an argument to wipe out the original record.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It does. You're right.
David, what took you to Bulgaria then, just before the Olympics?
Oh, it was me and the rest of the team. We had an opportunity to go out there and do some training. Just the whole squad together.
To train in and around the Bulgarian squad, or
no
separate place?
No, it was a bit. In hindsight, it was daft. We should have gone to Bisham Abbey or actually stayed at home. In fact, if we had gone to Bisham Abbey and stayed at home, I think I'd have an Olympic gold medal now.
Yeah.
But hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Sure is.
I guess I guess they sort of. What was their thought process? Was it that you were going to somehow pick up some Bulgarian strength through osmosis, or?
Well, we didn't. The irony of the whole thing was we didn't see any Bulgarians.
Yeah, incredible.
We just trained in a gym and stayed in a hotel. So
isn't that strange?
The only benefit was that we were all together training.
Isn't that strange? Very strange.
So probably the things that were floating around in the Bulgarian water supply you probably could pick up via osmosis.
Yeah. So by 1992, probably you placed 15th. It probably wasn't as performing as well as you would have hoped.
Yeah, 92. I was very strong before that championship. I was doing 100. I was doing more than the guy that won.
Okay.
I was doing 170 on the snatch, and I was doing 205. And I think 370 won that.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the bronze, gold, and silver were all 370.
Yeah.
And I was doing 375 in training, and then I got a really bad injury just literally a week before.
Yeah.
So I wasn't very lucky in the Olympic Games.
No.
It was all a question of timing, really, because in '84, I suppose, I was lucky there, but I'd have been even luckier if it was 1985, because I could have done 345 and won the Olympics.
Yeah.
It was a year later. The Olympics was a year later, and they still had the boycott. I could have won it.
Yeah.
If I didn't get the dysentery in '88, I'm pretty sure I'd have been up there. And then I had a really bad hip injury, so I didn't do any training for a couple of weeks before I competed in Barcelona. Didn't do any training at all, and then on the day I took a load of painkillers, and I managed to get I got a 160 snatch and a 185 jerk. But I was way
down,
10 kilos down on the snatch and 20 kilos down on the jerk, because I had a problem with my hip.
Yeah.
So I was quite unlucky in a way in the Olympic Games.
And one of the controversies, obviously, around that Games was the situation around Andrew Saxton and Andrew Davis, relating to them getting sent back from the Games.
Clenbuterol, you mean?
The clenbuterol stuff, yeah. Because obviously, for those people that didn't know, there was in a sense a bit of ambiguity, wasn't there, as to clenbuterol's status as to whether it was legal or illegal to be used.
Well, the whole thing was ridiculous, to be honest with you. I can say this now because obviously I was involved in it. I don't know what the situation is now, but at the time, all the drug testing was supposed to be random.
Yeah.
I don't believe it was random at all. I think they picked on weightlifters. I think they did more tests on weightlifters than a lot of other people. They pretended that it was names out of the hat. I got tested at the last Commonwealth Games. I think I got tested 4 times in the 4 weeks up to the Games in the gym, and 2 of those times, one was on a Sunday, and then the next test was on the Monday after the Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just don't believe that they're. I don't believe that they're random. But yeah, the thing around Andrew Saxton and Andrew Davis was that they were tested at Bisham Abbey, and they came up positive for salbutamol. I think, or clenbuterol, salbutamol, they're kind of the same thing, but they're basically an asthma inhaler. And the irony of it was that wasn't a banned drug in training.
Yes,
so you can take it in training. So then they waited until they got to the games, and then they said, "Oh, you've taken a drug that's banned in competition, so we're going to send you home."
Yeah.
So they sent them home, but that was ridiculous because they'd taken something that wasn't banned in training.
Well, this was the ambiguity, wasn't it? Because obviously clenbuterol was, in a sense at the time, seen as a stimulant, wasn't it? But there was evidence, the evidence was starting to come to light that it did have some anabolic properties.
Yeah,
so no one really knew where it sat, did they?
Two antagonist or something, wasn't it? And it had been used, and it increased muscle mass in cattle.
Yes.
And they gave it to cattle, so a lot of Russian weightlifters that were caught using clenbuterol said they hadn't taken it; they'd just eaten the meat that had been the cattle that had been given the clenbuterol. I mean, don't get me started on the drug testing stuff. I mean, I've obviously got my opinions on drug testing, and I think it's a very
I'd kind of like to get you started on
drug testing.
Yeah, in short, what are your feelings? In short, what do you feel?
Well, I'm very happy with drug testing, providing everybody's getting drug tested the same.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's something that creates a level playing field.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just read a book about the cycling, and clearly, they were taking everything. They were taking growth hormone. They were taking testosterone. They were taking EPO. They were doing blood doping. They did all these kind of things, and people were helping them get away with it.
Yeah.
It was corrupt.
Yeah, of course, totally. Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at a lot of other sports, if you look at, you can quote me on all this because it's all true.
Yeah.
If you look at rowing, for example, they've only just recently started doing random testing.
Yeah.
So I was being random tested, when I was a junior.
Yeah.
People were coming around my house and turning up at the gym. So we're going back 30 years. And they've only just brought it into rowing. Sports like tennis are they're testing as a joke. I mean, Greg Rosetsky failed a test on nandrolone, which is a drug that you have to inject. You can't take it orally. And the problem with it is it lasts apparently for 18 months in the system, so it isn't a very good drug to take if you're a sportsman.
No, Deca's the worst drug to take as an athlete.
Well, he failed the drug test for nandrolone.
Yeah.
Greg Rosetsky. And I'll tell you something I did now, and this will probably make you laugh, but it will show you how annoying, the sort of unlevel playing field, with drug testing that still exists. When he failed the drug test on nandrolone, the excuse was that he'd taken a food supplement.
Yes.
That contained nandrolone by mistake.
Yeah.
So I read that in the newspaper, and I immediately phoned the Lawn Tennis Association.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hi, I'm a coach. Could you please tell me it was a sports drink, I think they said. Could you please tell me the sports drink that Greg Rosetsky, used by mistake that created a positive nandrolone test?" Mm. And they said, "Well, why do you want to know that?" And I said, "I want to know it because I want to make sure that none of my athletes take that by mistake."
Yeah, exactly.
Nandrolone test. And they said, "No, we can't tell you what it is." And I said, "Well, why not?" "Well, we can't give that information."
Yeah.
So I said, I think the reason you can't give that information is because there isn't a drink. Because think about it, if there really was a drink on the market that athletes were taking that produced a positive test of nandrolone, it would be on the front page of every newspaper and everybody would be alerted to
it would be more than one person testing positive for it, wouldn't it? It wouldn't.
No, but you'd immediately say what it was. You'd immediately say it. You'd say this supplement creates a positive test on this.
You think so, yeah?
So stop taking it.
Well, there was a couple of examples, weren't there, where there was some either intentional or unintentional contamination of certain supplements. I mean, there was a product, Ultimate Orange, that was produced many years ago that was intentionally contaminated with Dynabol.
No, it wasn't Dynabol.
Was it not Dynabol?
It wasn't Dynabol. No, it wasn't a steroid. It was a stimulant. The Ultimate Orange. It had Etidrine, very high levels of well, it was Yohombi, wasn't it? That were very high levels of stimulant.
But that was a time when, and that became very public, didn't it? That was a very public story.
Well, they took it off the market because a lot of people died from it.
Yeah.
A lot of people that had heart problems took it, and people that had underlying heart problems they didn't realise.
Yeah.
Took it and died.
Yeah. So in a sense, your kind of the way you feel about drug testing and fairness in drug testing is more that all sports should be treated fairly, perhaps, than it is about your feelings over.
Everybody should be treated the same.
Yeah.
I mean, they're clearly not. I mean, in weightlifting, I don't know if you know, but I did commentating for quite a few years.
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely.
Of course.
And there was a guy called Halil Mutlu from Turkey.
Yeah. Great lifter.
He broke every record, every championship, all the time. And somebody said to me, that guy, he gets tested every month. They randomly test him every month in his own country, and he comes to every competition and he gets tested and he passes the test. Isn't he an amazing athlete? And I said, yeah, he is. He is an amazing athlete. Because if he's doing 38 kilo snatch as a clean athlete in the 56 kilo class and clean and jerk at 168, then if he was taking drugs, he'd be doing maybe 10 or 15 kilos more in each lift. So that is, he's incredible.
Yeah.
But in 2006, I was in Bulgaria commentating, and the World Anti-Doping Federation, who are not linked to the IWF, turned up.
Yeah.
And tested all the Turkish lifters. And they didn't realise that they were going to be becoming this separate organisation. And guess what?
Yeah.
They all failed the test.
Sure.
So, which means, but no one ever asked the real questions, because the real question is, why did Mutlu fail the test with WADA?
Yeah.
Why did he pass all the tests at home, and why did he pass all the IWF tests? And the answer is that even in a sport like weightlifting, that is a relatively low-level money sport.
Yeah.
Clearly Bulgaria are clearly paying off the IWF and pretending to do their own tests, and their athletes are getting away with it.
It would seem to be the case, wouldn't it? I mean, I just think there's.
Well, it is the case,
so many.
And he came back. I remember he came back a year later or 2 years later after his ban.
Yeah.
He did 20 kilos less on each lift.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at the sheer number of pullouts that there were at the London Olympics, I mean, it must have been more people pulling out at the last minute than any Olympics in history.
Yeah.
And it makes you.
Yeah, I mean, drugs is a huge. It's a huge. Well, it's not just a huge problem in sport. I mean, if you look at everything today, you've got people that. I mean, it amazes me. You've got people that just go to the gym, and they take drugs just so they can look good on the beach.
Yeah.
You've got actors. All these actors. I mean, it always makes me laugh when you've got these actors that get in shape in 12 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
How do they do that? And I go, it's easy.
Yeah.
They take a load. They train hard. They eat a very low fat diet and a high protein diet, and they take a load of drugs.
Yeah.
And people don't believe it, but that's it. That's the only way. My physique. I built my physique over 40 years. I built my physique, and these people can get in the kind of shape I'm in 12 weeks.
Absolutely.
Just by going to this celebrity trainer and going on this particular diet.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you should do with your personal training.
Talk to people who don't understand it, and they don't believe you.
Sure. Sure. Now, do you from your opinion and your experience, when you look at the performances of British weightlifters in the current era, how much do you feel the kind of, I guess, the lower level performances that we see from British weightlifters in this era, how much of that do you feel is because they're not performing on a level playing field? Perhaps they are being tested significantly more than other nations. Do you think that's 100% of it? Or?
I don't think the testing is any different for lifters now than it was when I was around.
Yeah.
We had all the random testing. We had we had all that. I mean, I was tested in the British Schoolboy Championships in 1980. I was tested as a schoolboy.
But do you feel that the
random
reason
testing was introduced pretty soon after that? So I don't think there's any different. I think that in my era there were people that were, I don't know. There were coaches like Den, Mike Pearman.
Yeah.
There were a few others as well that were genuinely kind of interested in the sport for the sport's sake. They weren't money orientated at all. And there was some genuinely sort of talented people around at that time.
Yeah.
That loved their sport, and I think it was almost. I don't even think it was by design. My weightlifting achievements were not really. It wasn't by design. It was by my design, but it wasn't by design of the Baller or Great Britain. No one was kind of dragging people into weightlifting and giving them money and giving them everything they need.
Yeah.
I just happened to, at that time, along with people like Andrew Davis and Dean Willey, we just happened to want to do it, and be enthusiastic about it, and travelling abroad and winning was kind of enough for us, if you know what I mean. And I think we touched on it earlier. A lot of youngsters now. I mean, I went to Rushden and Diamonds Football Club, and they've got a load of players there, and they wanted me to go down and do a little talk to them. So I went down and had a bit of a chat, and I couldn't believe the sort of attitudes of the players. It was unbelievable. They had no real interest in training hard or learning anything. They were just a sort of bunch of prima donnas that were there to earn their money and thought they deserved everything they got. There was no enthusiasm for the sake of the sport and self-improvement. And I don't actually personally understand that. I don't think I ever will.
No, but it's a very different sport, isn't it? Football to weightlifting in that sense. I mean, what the kind of point I was getting at was that, do you feel that the reason that the Zoe Smiths and those kind of athletes that are the better weightlifters in this country at the moment, the reason that they will not be able to compete for first, second, third Olympics and World Championships is because that they're not competing on a level playing field when you compare them to the Russians or the Chinese and so forth? In terms of testing,
there's lots of reasons. I think the reason I did so well was because I was enthusiastic, but in terms of genetics, there was a certain amount of luck there.
Yeah, sure.
Because enthusiastic and doing everything you need to do, isn't enough unless you've actually got the potential and the talent.
Yeah.
And I was, luckily I got the genetics that enabled, my hard work to sort of, bear fruits, if you see what I mean. And I think the problem that you've got now, I mean, it sounds, I don't know, maybe it sounds big-headed, I don't know, but I don't think that there are people in British weightlifting at the moment that have got the talent that I had.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, you're just born with that. You can't, bone lengths and where your muscles are attached,
sure,
and leverage and the muscle fibre that you're born with. You've got those factors, and I obviously had a lot. I obviously had those factors.
Yeah.
But I think I also had an ethic where I was prepared to maybe train a bit harder than them as well.
Okay.
I don't know how many of our weightlifters today would have got up at 5 o'clock in the morning when before school and gone to the gym and then gone to the gym after. I don't know how many would have done it.
Sure.
Or how many are doing it.
No, it's fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't know how many would benefit from doing it.
Yes.
Because to be able to do that kind of thing, you need a certain kind of genetics.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So there's a lot of different factors that came about at that time.
Yeah. I mean,
some of them are hard work, but some of them are luck. You get somebody who's prepared to work as hard as me, and they're never gonna reach those weights because, my brother, he was a good lifter, and he trained just as hard as me. There's no question.
Yeah.
Question about that. But he didn't lift as big weights because he wasn't quite as, his genetics weren't quite the same as mine.
Sure. And just, we're talking a bit...
Look at something like a squat. If you look on genetics, me and Tony were roughly the same size.
Yeah.
And I could back squat 275, and he back squatted 205.
Yeah. It's a big difference.
That's nothing to do with training. We both trained the same.
Yeah.
He trained it harder than me, if anything. but I could squat 70 kilos more. Now that is just purely down to genetics.
Well, it plays a huge role, doesn't it? I mean, I think anyone that doesn't see the importance of genetics is not really paying attention. What are your current feelings towards the sport in Britain, and how much do you follow it? What do you think it needs to do from a kind of a management and a kind of a office level, in a sense, to improve and grow and build? What would you do, and what are your feelings?
British weightlifting at the moment. I think if you want champions, you need to go to people that were champions and ask them what to do.
Yeah.
And I offered to help out loads of times with British weightlifting, and they were never interested in never interested in using me.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know. They did use me once, but it wasn't. They did ask me to go down and look at a squad training once. I think 30 lifters. So I went down. They offered to pay my expenses, and I said I didn't want any money. I was quite happy to go down and sort of give a talk and help out. And this was when Sarah Rowell was kind of taking over. Taking over because they said that Steve Cannon wasn't fit for purpose, so someone else was coming in and helping out. So she got in touch with me and said, "Do you want to come down and have a look at our lifters? And can you tell us, who's going to be an Olympic champion? Who's going to get a medal? Who can do this?" So I went down. And I gave a little bit of a talk about weightlifting and my philosophy and everything. And then I gave out some questionnaires.
Okay.
They were very, very simple questionnaires. It was, what's your best snatch? What's your best clean and jerk? How many years have you been training? How many sessions do you do a week? What's your body weight in training? What weight do you lift at in competition? What are your best lifts in training? What are your best lifts in competition? So I was getting sort of a picture of everybody.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, she said to me, they answered all the questions, I interviewed them, spoke to all of them, and she said to me, right, what should we do? And I said, get some new people.
Oh, God.
None of them are any good. I was just being honest. I said, none of them are going to, none of them, if you're asking me who's going to be Olympic champion, none of them. If you're going to ask me who's going to get a medal in the Olympics, none of them, they're just not, there was one guy that had some talent.
Who was that? Do you remember who it was?
Him.
Do you remember who that was?
Trying to think. He was in the 82 kilo class. He was doing about a 180 clean.
Okay. Trying to think what it would have been. English or Scottish or?
It was quite a long. It might have been Scottish, but it was Scottish, but it was quite a long time ago. It was some years ago.
Yeah.
I think he was clean about 180 as an 82.5 kilo guy. And I said to him,
Peter Kirkbride, or was this before?
It might be.
Yeah.
Might be him, but I'm not sure. No, maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was somebody else.
Okay.
But I had a conversation with him, and this is kind of how the conversation went. I said, "Oh, I think you're really, you only train 3 times a week. You're young. You've obviously got a talent for what you're doing. Why aren't you training twice a day, every day? If you did, you'd be really good." And he just said, "No, I can't be asked to train twice a day." And anyway, I'm doing my bricklaying apprenticeship.
Okay.
And I said, "Yeah, but you could do your bricklaying apprenticeship anytime. We're talking about the Olympic Games here."
Yeah.
And he wasn't interested. So there was sort of 30 people that actually, being completely blunt, whatever they did, they didn't have the talent to make it. There was one guy that did have some talent, but actually didn't want to do the work.
Yeah.
So I wasn't very popular. You
No.
can imagine I wasn't very popular.
No.
But that was that. They asked the question and I gave them the answer.
So what do you feel we need to do to get these? Obviously, we need to recruit more people into the sport to find more Dave Morgans.
I don't know what you've got to do. You've got a problem, haven't you? Because if you want to get people involved in sport, you need heroes, don't you?
Yeah.
You need heroes to follow. They haven't got any heroes to follow from this country now.
Yeah.
You need, and everybody's kind of expected to get paid for everything.
Yeah.
So, I think I was just a bit of an anomaly, really. I was somebody who actually wasn't interested in getting paid because, I came from a fairly kind of poor background, really. Not poor, because no one's poor in this country, but relatively poor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't believe anyone's poor in this country, because I've seen some countries where people really are poor. But I was never really motivated by money. I was lucky enough to have the talent and the drive to kind of do what I did, but I was never kind of doing it. And I think a lot of kids now, I think, and not just kids, I think people in general expect a lot more, don't they?
Yeah.
I think people expect a lot without necessarily putting the effort in. I kind of see it all the time, and most of the kids I meet now I find very uninspiring.
Yeah.
And uninspired. I mean, it's not a downer on kids, and it's not their fault, but it's all about computers. And I mean, if I was talking to somebody today on this bread making course. This woman kept she's every 2 minutes she was on a bloody phone, texting or and I just said to her, do you know what? If I could press a button now and actually wipe out the mobile phone, the internet, even the whole thing, I would do it, and life would definitely be better.
No.
But we're kind of where
different.
we are. So I don't know what we do, because people. I mean, everybody. What we have on tonight, The Voice.
Yeah.
We've got Britain's Got Talent. We've got the X Factor. Everybody puts a very high price on celebrity these days.
Yes.
And everybody seems to want the reward without the effort. And I don't know how you. I don't know what you do.
So in a sense, I mean, is it just a situation where we have to accept that, aside from the anomaly, that we're going to have to accept that British weightlifting is where it is. We can perform relatively respectably at Commonwealth Games level, but at world level, we're never going to be there.
Not going to happen. No, I don't think it is.
Fair
because
enough.
if you think about it, if you it's all about reward. In most cases. So if you take somewhere like Bulgaria, in Bulgaria people were generally poor. They can't travel abroad. If you're going back now to where I was lifting. So these people can't travel abroad.
Yeah.
They've got very limited options in life. So they've got talent scouts that go around and they find out who have got the talent, if you like, to be weightlifters by doing various tests.
Yeah.
So they then take those people, and they've got 500 people out of 50,000 that they've tested, and they go, right, you have all got the talent. Now, whether you're willing to train hard and whether your body will stand up to it and whether you're going to improve or be good as a competitor, that's yet to be seen, but you've got the talent.
Yes.
So what we're going to do is, if you give us 8 years of your life, you'll get, and you've got to train 8 hours a day for 8 years, but you're going to get to travel abroad, and if you win an Olympic gold medal, we're going to give you a house, we're going to give you a car, and we're going to look after you.
Yeah.
All right. Right. If you've got nothing, then you'll be willing to put those 8 hours in, and you will love the fact that you're able to travel to another country, and see the world, and that potentially you're going to end up with a house and a car, and money that you can live a higher level of a better lifestyle than the norm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So now turn that round. So you're now in the UK. Okay. Whatever anybody says about the UK, it makes me laugh. All the stuff on the news. I just think it's a joke about poverty. This, that. It's nonsense. Okay. No one's poor. Okay. We all eat. We all get medical attention. We've all got somewhere to live. I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So now you've got people that are doing really, really well. So now you say to them, "Oh, do you want to do weightlifting?" And they go, "Yeah. You've got to train 6 hours a day, you're not necessarily going to get any money for it.
Yeah.
And actually, even if you win, you're not necessarily going to be. No one's going to give you a pat on the back or say well done. Or I never get invited to Sports Personality of the Year or anything like that.
Yeah.
I never won the Welsh. You're not going to get that. So you've got to be. There's a lot of factors. You've got to be somebody who has got the talent, and there aren't many of those, I don't think.
No.
Then you've got to add to it somebody who is enthusiastic about weightlifting.
Yeah.
Enthusiastic enough to do the training, and then somebody who actually, at the end of it, is happy with the fact that they've just done well for themselves.
Yeah.
and they don't need the accolade or the money or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite difficult to come across.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
There's
and
one.
I think that's the problem you've got.
There's a Russian weightlifter called Kazimurad Akayev, and he's sort of the outlier there. He comes from an extremely wealthy Russian family, but somehow has this drive within him to succeed and clearly to train. I'd love to sort of look into his head and find out why he's done it. You can understand with someone like Klokov, where his dad was an extremely good lifter, but Akayev didn't come from that. So why? What was in it for him to carry on doing it, even though he had all the money in the world? I just don't get it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when you've got all the money in the world, you know, I know a lot of people that have got a lot of money and they're bored stiff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you do. You know, you need some kind of a goal. You know, I always need to find I'm moving forward in something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my wife and I, we just spent the last year building our sort of dream house.
Fantastic.
You know, and we built it now. You know, and we're living in it, and it's fantastic.
Does it have a gym?
It's got a gym in it. Yeah, it's got a fantastic gym. But you know, my wife's looking for the next project, and I'm thinking about competing in the world market next year. So you know, we you know, you always need a kind of project, and you always need something that you're working towards.
Yeah, so that's a perfect segue. So you did the 2005 Masters in Edmonton. Broke the World Masters records. The snatch still stands as a world record.
The total still stands.
And the total still stands. And so you're thinking about coming back to do Masters again. I'm
thinking about doing Bangor next year.
Yeah, is that because it's in Wales? Is that really what's done it for you?
Partly, partly, and partly because I quite like the idea of. I'd quite like to set some world records up that kind of stand forever.
Yeah.
Whether I can do that or not, I don't know. I mean,
until they change the categories again.
Yeah, until they change the category. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, you know, the world records I think are 116 on the snatch and 145 on the jerk.
Okay, so that'd be smashed.
So, well, you know, it depends on a lot of different factors. You know, I'm just doing one weightlifting session a week. I started 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But you know, when you come back at 50, you know, although I'm very, very strong on benches and all the, you know, and deadlifts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You still don't really know what you're going to do as a weightlifter because it's a very different discipline. You know, as you get older, you know, like my strength on deadlifts is you know, stronger than it ever was when I was lifting. You know, I could pull sort of 285, 290 now.
Yeah.
You know, I can bench 190. I would never have done those things when I'm lifting.
Yeah.
But weightlifting is very different to that. You know, weightlifting is about speed, strength, coordination. You know, the snatch is a very it's a big equalizer. You know, you've got people who can lift a lot of weight, but you try and get them to snatch, and it's a very, very specific skill.
Yes.
You know, and when you come back into it, you don't really know whether you've still got it or not.
Yeah. What is it that motivates you to do Masters? Because, I mean, very few of the guys that have been elite come back and do Masters. So what is it for you that's motivated you?
Very few of the people that have been elite do anything.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of lifters, they've gone one of two ways. You know, they've either gone really fat or they've gone really skinny.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't do anything. You know, a lot of people that win in the big games, they never touch a weight or do any physical exercise at all after it.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, you know, I'm very interested in being healthy and fit, and you know, I'm just interested in it anyway.
Yeah.
And I think I just go through phases where I'm quite happy to sort of, you know, do a big bench press or do a big deadlift or, you know, do a CrossFit, you know, some CrossFit challenge or some 2,000 meter row challenge. But every now and then, you know, obviously weightlifting, the sport that I chose and the sport that I love, and you know, the great thing about the Masters is that if you're 50, you compete against people that are 50, and you compete against people that have got the world record that are 50.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it kind of, it's no, you know, I don't think it's any. I mean, I think people should respect if someone's breaking the world record at 50. I mean, I think Andy Siever is a very good friend of mine. I don't know if you know him.
I know him very well. Yes, very well.
won the Masters, 10 times. He snatched 106 kilos in the 69 kilo class.
Yeah.
At 54 years of age.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me, "Oh, it's rubbish." And I went, yeah, he's the only person in the history of weightlifting at 69 kilos that has snatched 106 kilos.
Yeah.
It isn't shit.
No, it's just... and to be fair to Andy as well, I mean, Andy was still qualifying for and competing at English senior championships up until, a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah. No, and he's in fantastic shape. I mean, he's about 4% body fat at the moment.
Yeah.
and he's thinking about doing next year as well. But it's people like Andy who break these world records, who, again, they spend their own money.
Yeah.
They're just enthusiasts.
Yeah.
He's won the world championships 10 times in a row. He's broke world records most times, but you're never going to see him on Sports Personality or anything like that, and he's never going to get any credit for it. And I don't think he cares, to be honest. He's like me. He sort of does it because he loves doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. We've got a lot of people like that, I think, that are kind of unsung heroes, and then you've got other people that are perhaps in the spotlight that perhaps get more credit than they're due.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Dave, I'm mindful of your time, but I wanted you just quickly to talk about what you're doing now. Talk about your book, talk about your personal training, talk about your supplement range that's out there. Tell people, just in whatever detail you want. Tell people where they can find information. Tell people how they can get hold of this stuff.
Well, the supplements we don't do anymore because we couldn't compete with the big companies.
Okay.
We just couldn't. We couldn't make them cheap enough. So and we couldn't sell them cheap enough. There was just too much competition on that. So I mean, I'm not doing that anymore.
Okay.
The books, we wrote the books. The book was published by Virgin. Be Your Best. I think it's a good book. I don't know if you got a copy of it. Have you got a copy?
No, I actually haven't got a copy. But I've spoken to a lot of people about it, and I want to get a copy.
Send me an email, and I'll send you a copy.
I tell you what we'll do, Dave, is we'll...
got my email?
Yeah, we'll give it a good review, and we'll... Got
my email?
Yeah, I have, yes, I have.
Yeah, send me your address. I'll send you a copy. Well, I don't have to give it a good review. Read it first.
Yeah, I'll give it.
I genuinely.
I mean,
I've got them for sale, but they're not on the website or anything. I've got them. If somebody wants some, they can email me and I'll send them one. But no, I spent a lot of time writing the book, and I wrote the book. I didn't get somebody to write it for me.
Yeah.
I wrote it. It's quite painstaking, and and all the pictures in there. Nothing's photoshopped. All the ideas are mine. All the little drawings and everything were all kind of my idea. The philosophy isn't about weightlifting. It's about being, it's about diet and being sort of fit and healthy and in good shape.
Yeah.
Whether you're 25 or 75. I'll send you a copy of it.
Yeah, please do.
What you think? But I think it's a good book, but I don't think it'll ever be a big seller because it hasn't got the right marketing or whatever behind it. But
yeah, I also in another sideline I write for Ultra Fit magazine.
Yeah.
And what I'll do when I read it, I'll review it for Ultra Fit because I think perhaps that market is more the target market for the book.
Yeah, I wrote for a gay magazine for. Don't laugh. But I wrote for Attitude for a year. Yeah. And tried to did a load of articles for them and sort of tried to push it. From that kind of, because obviously gay guys are quite into their sort of fitness, but it never really took off, which was kind of a shame.
Yeah.
But it is I think it's a good book. I'll send you a copy, and you can tell me what you think.
I will do. So that's not available on your website, but people can get in touch with you via the website.
They can get in touch with me,
get hold of
my
it.
email or whatever, and if they want to buy one, they can. But
is it still available on Amazon or any of those other resellers?
There's two versions of it. The original version that Virgin did is I think is still available.
Yeah.
The sad thing about that was that once the book was published, Virgin sold out to somebody else who wasn't interested in books on health and fitness.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So again, it was another, just like the '92 and the '88 Olympics. It was bad timing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But having said that, though, I've had a lot of things that have been good timing. So you take the rough with the smooth, don't you?
Yeah. So just give the.
Yeah. If you email me your address, I'll send you a copy.
I will do. Just give the listeners your website address as well, so they can have a look at your website and have a look at the book and so forth.
They just put Be Your Best.
Is it .com?
Into Google and it'll come up.
Be Your Best. And you have a personal training studio clinic in Cambridge?
In Cambridge.
Yeah, and the details of that are all on the website as well. So,
yeah, my number and everything's on the website. I mean, I don't usually take people on now. I mean, I'm sort of full, but the most of the stuff I do on the personal training is sort of word of mouth, and my wife and I are sort of into. A lot of the stuff we do is in property now.
Yeah.
But I still keep involved with the personal training because it's something I like.
Yeah. And do you plan to have increased involvement in weightlifting at all? Would you like to have more involvement in weightlifting?
Yeah, I would like to have more involvement, but it doesn't seem to. Nobody seems to be interested in what I've got to offer.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I don't know what the reason is for that.
Do you have interest in running things like seminars? I mean, obviously the workshops model is a big thing now. You've got some of the Russian lifters touring the world and stuff, doing their workshops in CrossFit gyms and in weightlifting gyms and things like that. Yeah. Is it something you've ever thought of exploring, perhaps going around and doing some workshops and seminars and things like that on weightlifting?
Yeah, I haven't really explored it. No. Yeah, I don't know. It's something there's a call for. Is it something there's a call for?
There may well be an opportunity for you.
Well, I think so.
Up.
No, I think so because for example, Klokov is over in the UK very soon. Now, and he's charging £175 per person to come to a seminar with him for a few hours or whatever to have a look at him do a bit of lifting, and he looks at your lifting and that kind of thing. And those things are selling out left, right and centre.
I think the CrossFit thing is actually increasing the interest in weightlifting, isn't it?
I think so,
as that kind of goes on, maybe the demand for someone like me, will increase, and maybe I'll have to kind of sit down and put something togetter.
Well, I think, it was interesting in twofold, actually, a couple of things. And I was just chatting to the national coach the other day, and he was saying, so I was chatting to Andy Callard, it was actually, and Andy was saying,
Andy Callard,
I just bought a platform from him, but he was just saying that one of his lifters, Jack Oliver, who's based at Leeds, is in incredible demand for coaching in CrossFit gyms. They almost can't. He hasn't got enough hours in the day to give to them.
Really?
Yeah, for paid coaching. Yeah, it's incredible the amount of opportunity there seems to be in terms of coaching weightlifting.
Yeah, no, it's not something that I sort of because I think before CrossFit came about, I don't think it was there was any real demand for it.
Yeah. But
I think now the CrossFit thing, ironically, is making weightlifting a lot more popular, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we've seen that in the English and the British Championships. I mean, obviously the qualifying totals for the English are very low or relatively low, especially on the ladies' side. But, I mean, the last couple of years, it's been 2 days, English and British champs. I mean, there was over 100 competitors at the English champs just gone. And I think CrossFit is responsible for that.
I mean, I just joined Baller again, actually.
Oh, really?
A couple of weeks back, yeah. The girl, though, didn't even know who I was on the thing.
Of course you didn't.
So when Davey Morgan, I sort of joked with her, and I went, you don't know who Davey Morgan is?
No.
I said, the greatest weightlifter that ever lived. I said, you just got to check it out on YouTube. And it was she just didn't have anything.
No, that doesn't surprise me.
I was some old lunatic.
Yeah.
That was just kind of messing with her, really. So yeah.
But no, I mean, it's been that's the thing. I mean, there's been more. I think there's more people wanting to compete in weightlifting now than there has been in a long time. But obviously, the people that are taking it up are just too old to really excel, to get to that, to get to even to, you can maybe get to international level potentially, but you're never going to be competing for medals or anything of that nature. But I think, from my perspective, I think where we're going to start perhaps to see the impact is the children of these people.
Yes.
As I mean, my background was rugby and strength and conditioning, and I really became passionate about weightlifting through wanting to become better at coaching the snatch and the clean and the jerk to athletes. Yeah. And then it just kind of consumed my life. But my son, I'll send you some videos of him, but my son is 3 and he's been lifting since he was, I've got pictures of him lifting a bar over his head before he could stand.
Right.
And he's 3 now, and he is very technically proficient in the snatch and clean and jerk, and we pulled him up on the platform at the English, and he went and did 3 snatches, 3 clean and jerks at 3 years old,
Wow.
Yeah, and he's really good. You know, there's a video of him doing a clock of complex and things like that. And
send me some.
I will.
Me some stuff. I'd be interested. Yeah.
I'll send you the videos. And
we'll keep in touch. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know if I fall apart or if I. And I'll probably come along to some stuff as well. But it's just.
But we'd love to. I mean, if you're ever down this way, David, we're in Surrey, and if you ever wanted to pop into to our club and have a look at some of our guys and have a lift and stuff, we'd love to see you. If you ever had a free,
I may do that. Yeah, I may do that.
It would be great because British weightlifting might not like your input, but we would absolutely love it.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But
send me an email. Give me all the details.
I will do.
Your numbers and everything.
I will do.
We'll keep in touch.
And I think there's opportunities as well. Perhaps we can talk about things like seminars and stuff, and it's something that we can obviously help organise and promote and stuff. I think perhaps it's a route that would be lucrative and
I think if I knew what it was exactly that people wanted, so I could construct the right. Maybe that. Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to talk about that.
Well, listen, David. Look, thank you so much for your time. It's been a fascinating interview. Very candid, which we always appreciate. Anything you just wanted in closing? Any sort of closing words or remarks or anything for people that are listening that have appreciated watching you over the years and have appreciated your career?
I think the one thing I would say is to anybody that's doing anything, and it was something that my coach said to me, is that whatever you're doing, do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Be doing it for yourself. Don't be doing it for somebody else. Don't be doing it for the money. Be doing it for you.
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing I'd say.
Well, David,
I think that's good advice.
Well, listen, we really appreciate your time. I mean, we could speak for hours, and we didn't even touch on any of your kind of training philosophies or anything like that. So
your commentary with Eurosport, which is something I really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, all this kind of stuff. So maybe at some point
we'll do another one. We'll do another one.
I'd love to, David. It's been great.
Yeah.
Well, listen,
send me an email. Give me a shout. Maybe we'll talk again.
I will do.
And we can cover some of the other stuff. Yeah.
We'll do. Well, thank you so much for your time, David, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.
And you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.